Welcome to the Authors Showcase series presented by the South Florida Writers Association, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide literary arts and support writers. Today's guest is Joseph Pinon.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw.
Welcome, Joe. I'm going to start off with just talking about Sand and Hope, which is your recent book that we're going to be talking about, Sand and Hope, My Journey in Iraq.
Right.
So I'm going to talk about it a little bit here first. Joseph's memoir, Sand and Hope, is a powerful account of his time in Iraq. It blends personal narrative with historical insight, offering readers a rare inside look at life inside joint U.S.-Iraqi operations, the struggles of tribal communities, and the hopes for peace that endured despite violence. So that's great. Before we dive into the book, I would like to share a little bit about you because that's, your history is very impressive. Your bio is very impressive.
Thank you.
Joseph Arbignon Almari is an acclaimed author, memoirist, and historical fiction writer whose life journey bridges American public service with the ancient traditions of the Middle East. His works, including Sheikh Alawi, The Black Scorpion, The Path of Heroes is Paved in Blood, and Sand and Hope, My Journey in Iraq, which we're going to be talking about today, explore themes of courage, sacrifice, cultural heritage, and survival in some of the world's most challenging landscapes. His commitment to service led him overseas. Joseph joined the U.S. Department of State, serving 2 years in Iraq as a provincial reconstruction team leader in Salahuddin province. There, he worked directly with the U.S. military commanders, Iraqi tribal leaders, and local councils to strengthen governance, improve infrastructure, and promote economic recovery during a time of war. Very impressive. His firsthand experiences under fire, his diplomatic role in fostering trust with Arab leaders, and his deep immersion in Iraqi and Bedouin culture shaped the foundation of his storytelling. Joseph, your bio reads like the beginning of a novel just in itself. I mean, the public service, the cross-cultural immersion, the firsthand experience in a war zone, that's amazing. Thank you for being here. I'd love to start by asking how these experiences pushed you towards writing.
Well, it took a while. It took 10 years for me to begin to write these books. As you mentioned, I've been all over the world and I have been always involved in counterterrorism. I was selected by the United States Department of State to go to Iraq because of their need to have people that have my particular background in management. I was an assistant city manager, both in the city of Miami Beach and Miami, and director of Homeland Security. So they asked me to join the state and to go to Iraq to see what we could do. This was a time in 2007 to 2009 when they were being introduced to democracy. And I was going to be going there to help them through that whole process. So it was a tremendous journey, a tremendous experience that really changed my life. I made friends for life. I still communicate with some of the mayors that I had dealt with, and they send me messages all the time. It's a real tremendous experience.
I'm sure, no doubt. I mean, that's just very impressive. You've, thank you for your work. I mean, I have to say that's very impressive. There's a lot in this book that I'm sure the readers are going to have so many questions. I wish we could cover them all today. But we'll get to some of them because that's a lot of information. So you said it took you about 10 years to write it, or did you start writing it 10 years later? I know that
it took me 10 years to start writing it. I hadn't thought of being an author. I served in Vietnam and I had a lot of information that I had saved, letters that I had sent to my mother and friends that my mother was giving to me. And I began to read about all the things that I had done, and it brought a lot of memories. So I wrote about that book based on that. And then Sand and Hope, obviously, I have a lot of documents that I saved and photographed, over 1,000 photographs that I had during those 2 years that I served. So I decided I'm going to put my story, in some books, and that's what I did.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. Over 1,000 photographs.
Yes.
That's a lot of memories. So
Yeah.
is that including photographs from the war before that you said you served?
No. This is just from the Sand and Hope.
Oh,
Sand and Hope is about, and the reason the book is called Sand and Hope is because obviously sand is the predominant, landscape, and hope because that's what the people had. All they had was hope. They've been through wars with Iran and then now with the United States and the Allies, and so they suffered a lot. And I was sent there to kind of do part of my duty was for reconstruction of the country, not so much in physical, but also in the communities. So I prepare them for democracy in the sense that I showed them a lot of things that they needed to do in terms of um, voting, using voting machines.
wow.
My team was involved in all of that. In promoting their candidates, the sheikhs, were the tribal leaders, as you know, especially outside of Baghdad. It's all villages. They're all controlled by sheikhs, which are the leaders of the tribes. And their question was, why would they need a someone to represent them? And the way I explained it is because we were giving money to the government in Iraq at Baghdad, and they needed to send representatives. It was no longer Saddam Hussein sending monies to the people that he supported, and not the others. This time, everyone was going to have a piece of that pie, and so they had to send members. And what was interesting was that they said, all right, so we'll make elections and we'll select the women, but they'll do what we say. And then I said, well, that's not the way it's supposed to work.
That defeats the
Uh,
purpose. Right?
but in their culture, that's how it works. The women were subservient to the men, and they did what they were told to do. There were quite a few that didn't, though. There were quite a few that became heroines. They went on their own, and so for the 2 years that I was there, we sponsored them and we helped them get through the whole process of elections. And they got elected, and they went to Baghdad to represent their villages. And so then I left, and so did we all leave Iraq. So what happened after that? They still have elections, they still have people there, but a lot of the work that we did, unfortunately, did not continue for obvious reasons.
Correct.
So
Yep. Yes, which was one of the questions I was going to ask you. How did that process continue? Do you think that there could have been more that the US could have done to promote, for example, women being able to speak up for themselves or do things like voting or things of that nature?
yes, yes. Well, we did a lot in the sense that we developed their economy based on not only helping men with their businesses, but also women. Women opened up businesses that were funded by us, by the United States government. A lot of the women only were able to work as farmers. Uh, None of the big businesses outside of Baghdad were allowed for women to work on. And so we changed that. I ordered a lot of different types of equipment from the United States and from other parts in Europe to bring to them so they can start doing their own business. And they did, and
And you
they
say
did. Many
still,
of the women didn't know how to read and write, so I instituted several schools to teach them how to read and write in Arabic and in English. So that helped them a lot in those 2 years.
that's very impressive. Joe, you said you're still in touch with a lot of the representative and mayors. Are you able to share with the work that you did there, what percentage still remains? Have they continued that? Or
It's hard to say by percentage, but a lot of the things that we did worked and continue to work. For instance, look, let's say in the city of Balad, one of the major cities there in the province, in Salahuddin province, where I was in charge of, the city didn't have street names. So, how do you get things there by mail if you don't have an address? So I created a system that similar to ours, where we named streets. The sheikhs and their tribal leaders voted to put names on all the streets. And believe it or not, a simple thing like that really helped because now they could get their mail. Now they could get all kinds of things that were sent from us to them directly rather than going to the government who then would disperse those items to them if it ever happened. So by sending them directly to them, they were very appreciative. And that's one of the things, at least just one of many things that still persist that helped them a lot. Um, but developing their industries, they rely on propane gas to do all the heating. Uh, and they didn't have a factory that produced propane gas. They bought it from Turkey at a very expensive price. Well, I imported equipment that was able for them to develop several factories that manufacture the propane gas tanks. And propane is they're big in oil, so they have gas. They just didn't have the canisters to put them on. They will give the gas to Turkey. Turkey would sell it back to them at a very high price. And now that was eliminated to a certain extent. So they produce their own. That's just one of so many things that in the book you'll see that
Yes.
we did with the women specifically.
Yeah. Yes. And I wanted to also ask you, because you do describe in the book some projects that you mentioned would have helped the Iraqi citizens be more successful, economically, more independent. What are some of these projects? Maybe you've already spoken about them, but were there any that were not implemented that should have been or could have been implemented?
No, no, we did a lot. I can't think of, well, obviously there's a lot more things that we do here that we could have done, but look, farming, for instance, they were using techniques that were very old. And we brought in different types of seeds. We brought in a system that they were able to use then to produce fruits and vegetables that they didn't have before. They imported from Turkey, they imported from Jordan, from Syria, and now they were producing them themselves and equipment, to develop the land. I mean, it was all done by hand and by, uh, you know, oxes and the donkeys delivering things. Now we brought in machinery that was very, very effective for the
Yes.
farmers to do. And just one of the items, I mean, teaching the schools, the women were they would quit school in the third grade. We instituted a system where they would go all the way through high school.
And that remains.
Uh, yeah, at least in my district. Now, all the other districts had representatives as well that were doing about the same thing. So I can only really, really discuss what we did in Saladin. I went to 5 different cities where I worked with the mayors and the governor of the province to institute all of these programs, which in the book I described in a lot of detail.
Yes, and you also talk about the Euphrates and Tigris rivers and the importance. Do you feel that the commentaries were not enough when it came to these economic engines, that the U.S. didn't cover quite enough when it comes to that subject?
Well, there could always be more, but we work with the military, the United States military, to create what we call an IBIZ, a business zone that didn't exist before. This is where men and women could work in shops and fix all kinds of things, vehicles, bicycles, electric equipment. We taught women how to be electricians, how to be mechanics. These are things that were not allowed in the past. But because we were in control, we had the money, we had the control of the projects. Um, we were able to accomplish that, and that was very, very positive, because a lot of the women lived without men in their households. They were killed. There were over 1 million men killed with the war in Iraq. I mean, in Iran. So there were a lot of widows, and there's a whole section that I have there on widows. I met a lot with them, and I asked them what they wanted, what they needed to survive and to make their families more prominent. And so we did that. We did exactly what they wished. And so I think that still persists. Some of the mayors have told me that the programs are still working. What didn't work really was the fact that the enemy came back. ISIS took over after we left. Remember, we left in 2009, and ISIS really began to really rise in 2010 and then on. And so the war continued. While we were there, we had it under control to a big extent. But now the enemy took back again a lot of the things that we had won for them. So some of the mayors left Iraq and now are living in England, in France. And so my communication with them is really outside of Iraq.
Okay.
But I do keep some from Iraq as well. I maintain some of the contacts and keep me informed. Um,
Well,
So
yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've made some waves there. So you've done some very important work. Um, that's amazing to hear. I want to talk a little bit about your memoir because this you would consider this a memoir, Sand and Hope, correct?
yes.
Right. So why did you feel that you wanted to put this information of your experience in a book and not keep it personal to yourself? What did you feel needed to get out there?
Well, people don't know. People didn't know about what we did in Iraq. They all thought that a lot of those folks that I know. I mean, I'm commander of the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and I have over 300 members. None of them knew what exactly we did there. They thought we just went there to fight. That was the farthest thing from the truth. We really reconstructed that country. We spent billions of dollars, a trillion actually, in trying to reconstruct the entire country. I can speak of myself on that area. I mean, I had $20 million to start with to begin reconstructing bridges and roads and implement schools. We did a lot of wrong things too, you know. I mean, we were forced to build hospitals, but they didn't have doctors. They didn't have nurses. So we built structures that they asked for, that we actually demanded they have for the public without thinking that who was going to man those things. And so that was a mistake. That was a wasted amount of money that we spent building those clinics and hospitals when they didn't have the doctors and nurses to man them. So, you know, there were errors that we did, but we were told to build those because they have been destroyed and because there was a need. Uh, Teaching doctors and nurses was not easy. What I did was, and in the book you'll read, I implemented a program at the bases that I was in where our military doctors trained doctors and nurses, at least in the more modern techniques. You couldn't teach someone just out of the street to become a doctor on a base, but there were many that had very old techniques, a lot of midwives that came into the base, and then we trained them correctly and we gave them the equipment to do their work. That was very essential for them, and they really appreciated it. People didn't know that. People didn't know the love that was established by the Americans there with the population. They really loved it. They cried when I left. They gave me so many awards that I just
I
couldn't bring them all back
can't
because
imagine
they were
what
so
you
appreciative.
did there, of course, absolutely. That's amazing the work that you've done there, Joseph. And I think this needs to get out there. I mean, this, even if it happened back then, it should be known that the US went in Iraq and did this, and your work as well. It should be recognized, absolutely should be recognized and honored. And I'm so happy that you put this in a book. When did you publish the book? When did the book?
It came out about a month ago.
Okay, just a month ago. Okay.
Yeah,
Said it took you 10 years to, why did it take that long? Was it just, were you
I
registered?
was working.
Oh,
I
you,
was working in intelligence. I was working in a company that did a lot of counterintelligence work, security work, and you know, I became director of Homeland Security, where I was very much involved in that. So I didn't have time to write. And then finally I said, okay, now that I'm retired, I want to put whatever I learned in writing so that people know what we actually did. It's not a credit to me, it's a credit to our country. What we try to do, if you read the part in the beginning of the book, we have done that so many times before. We rebuilt Japan after they attacked us. We rebuilt Germany after they attacked us. Uh, so, you know, we've done this before. This is not the first time. And I wanted people to remember that, to actually understand that when we go out there, we're just not fighting, we're rebuilding. And just people didn't know that when I got back. And as I was talking to my colleagues and my friends, and they kept telling me, well, we didn't know this. We didn't know that. Well, I said, okay, I'm going to write a book that tells exactly what we did. And I have all the documents. I have all the everything that I brought back from there that shows exactly what we did. This is not just a story, it's the truth. It's documented in emails, it's documented in paperwork that we created for the State Department. So is there for anyone to see that the work that we did was more than just fight a war. It was to rebuild a country, to bring back peace to nation and to bring hope to the people that live there.
Yes.
That was really the thing that I wanted to portray more than anything else. And it was not just me. There were, as you see in the book, I have pictures of all the members that participated in PRTs throughout the country in Iraq, and they came from all walks of life. I was one of the only ones that really worked in government. And so I did a lot of my work in government with the mayors to kind of restructure the way that they did their sessions. You know, when they had a commission meeting, it was just loud. It was just screaming back and forth. And I recommended. I was always recommending. I never, forced them to do anything. But I showed them the way we did things here. You know, we had a council, we had laws, we had regulations, and that seemed to work a lot in the sense of making projects move forward and come back to them to see how they worked. That
Right.
didn't happen before.
The structure was not there. Structure is so important to make things progress and get things in order. So that you feel that, you did that for them. You helped them create a structure.
Exactly. Create a structure, a system that they could all accept and that could be more beneficial to everyone, especially the people.
I hope that remained, because that's very important for the progress of any country, of course. So a little bit more about during these 10 years. I'm so curious. I know you were working. Were you sort of like in the back of your mind writing the book, having ideas or inspiration for the book? Or was it just when you retired that you decided, I think I'm going to write it?
No, I always wanted to write it. I just didn't have the time. I had never written books of this nature, so it takes a lot to go ahead and go through, hundreds of documents and pull out things that we did that would be interesting for people to read about. So that took a while, and so that's when I started. Actually, I started writing 2 years ago, but I didn't get the book done until now, just about a month ago or so.
Okay.
And then I began to write. I mean, I was writing before on other things and other projects, especially on my police work. I wrote 3 books based on serial killers.
Oh, you'll have to tell us about those as well.
That's coming out at the end of this month.
At the end of those two. Okay. Well, we're going to go back to those other books at the end, but I want to stay on Stand and Hope.
Okay.
I'm curious to know, as you went along, as you started writing, did your perspective on any of the events change now that you were out of it and you started looking back, reflecting on it? Did you see it differently? Did you see anything differently?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have. After reflecting on all the things that we did, I didn't have time to think back then. We were just doing things. I mean, I'm a very, very active person, and we had to do things, and we have very little time to do it. First, it was a year because our tour was a year, but I was the exception. I remained for another tour because they didn't want me to leave, and the State Department then gave me permission to stay another year. Remember, we were in a war zone. I got attacked several times. My vehicle was overturned one time, and I was shot at several times, actually. So we were the target for the not the ISIS at that time, but the Al Qaeda people that were insurgents in Iraq. So, I mean, in reflecting back, it gave me a lot of time to think of all the things that we did, and it did make a big change in me. I really appreciated what they did to hear what we had to say, and it really made a big difference in my life for sure.
Yeah. And did you write about incidents like that, like you said, when, being attacked, or did you just
Yes,
focus more on?
yes. No, they're in the book.
Okay.
In the book, I was assaulted. I mean, I visited a mayor while he said, "Look, nobody's going to attack you when you come to my home because I'm a tribal leader, whatever." And we sat there in his living room. I have pictures there with him and a colonel that accompanied me and the army soldiers that were our protection. And as I was walking out of his house, a sniper took a shot at me as I was closing the door, and it hit my bulletproof window. And the gunner right above me turned around and shot at him and cut him in half almost. So yeah, there were several of those, and there's a lot of pictures I didn't put in because of the you know, the bloody scenes that I saw, and I didn't think the public really wanted to see that. Uh, but we went to villages where they were attacked by the insurgents and killed only because they talked to us because and they needed water. We brought water to them, and when we would leave, some of the insurgents would come and take the water from them and kill them. That was atrocious. I mean, I didn't talk too much about that. I did a couple of instances in the Sand Flats, for example, was a part of the village by the river. And you'll see that in the pictures that how we brought in food and water. The kids, they love it. We brought soccer balls to them, and they love that, and toys that they never seen before. We try to stay away from any weapons or anything that had to do with military.
Yes, of course.
But they love Disney stuff, and they love all kinds of things that we brought to them.
Yeah. Well, you're
You know,
talking about these events, and I'm imagining, I'm visualizing this, and I'm thinking this would make a great movie. Has that been something that you've considered?
yes, yes, I talked to my editor about that because it should be a good movie to tell people how what we did, and you know, I think everyone should know about that.
Yes. And I think you should include even these incidents that you say maybe readers wouldn't want to know about. I think a lot of them do. I think a lot of them want to know the truth, even if it's a little bit bloody or a little bit,
Right. Well, I have all that, but in terms of the book, I didn't want it to be too bloody in the
no,
sense.
I mean, if you were to make the movie, I mean, I think that, including all
Oh,
would
absolutely. And I have plenty of pictures that show that, and plenty of their own stories. You know, the book that you mentioned, Alawi, that
yeah,
was one of the sheikhs that I dealt with. He worked a lot with us. He was a tribal leader. He went back centuries and told me stories about his ancestors. And that's what this book is, a novel, but it's based on his ancestors. So it's really
about
a combination. It's got a lot of truth. I
right now.
did a lot of research while I was there, and the battles were all real. The situations were all real. His great 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 grandfather was there, so I made it a novel because I don't have a firsthand knowledge, but
Right.
certainly
But you're
these
talking about the Black Scorpion, Sheikh Alawi, the Black Scorpion.
correct.
Okay.
Yes,
Or
he
Ed,
comes out of that. He comes out of Iraq too. So
right.
that's another
That's a
story.
separate novel. So did you wrote that uh like a fiction novel based on his
Correct.
in
Yeah.
that his thing?
Correct. Yes.
You've got a lot of stories. You got a lot of
A
stories.
lot.
You.
A lot. Yeah.
Incredible. I'm curious to know, looking back now, is there anything that you understood differently about yourself, about your life? You know, as having that journey, going through that journey, that experience, it's got to be life changing.
It was life changing because I dealt with them on a one-to-one basis. But remember, before that, I was a police officer and I worked with kids and I worked with gangs. I was in charge of the gang unit in Miami Beach as a police officer. And, I had a lot of dealings directly with people, with the kids and their families. Uh, so that, you know, brought a lot of my memories back to when I was much younger. And I did the same thing in Iraq. As you can see, I'm working a lot with the kids there. I went to the schools, I talked to them. I had an excellent translator that told all the stories and jokes that I was able to make, and they laughed. So I guess they understood what I said in English as they would translate it. So there was a lot of personal contact, and that certainly made a big impact on me, without a doubt.
Sure. I was going to actually ask you, with the English translation, I'm sure, the heads, the mayors and things of that nature probably could speak and understand English, but
Yes.
those in the community, how did that go with the women and things of that nature that were
Very well. Very well. I had a female translator, had a male translator. They were my aides. They stood with me all the time. Like you mentioned, three of the mayors spoke English. They were actually educated in London, in England. So they spoke English, and that helped a lot. The ones that didn't, well, we had translators that did an excellent job. They were Iraqi Americans that lived here in the United States and had gone there like I did as volunteers. and became part of the United States Department of State uh, group. So they did a fantastic job because the people reacted very well. So I knew that maybe the exact words that I used were not translated, but whatever they said made sense because they laughed and you could read it in their faces,
Sure.
that they understood.
And was teaching them the English language ever integrated during this?
Yes,
Was okay.
yes. The schools that I had that I created that were teaching them Arabic as well, reading and writing, because of course they spoke the language, but they didn't really read or write that well, especially the women. The men did. The men went through all the schools, but I talk about that in the book, their education system, how it failed women. And so we tried to do that to kind of bring back some of the education that they had missed. So that really worked very, very well.
That's, I mean, that's amazing. And I wonder if they kept that too, the English language, teaching them the English language.
Yes, a lot of them, well, they learned a lot of words. Maybe they couldn't communicate like you and I are doing right now, but they would understand a lot of things that we said,
But
especially
yeah, do you know if
especially
they kept
important words like, "Can I have some money?
it?
Can you help me get some fruits?" They knew how to say those things.
Do you know if they kept that going in the
Yes,
schools that were okay? That's excellent.
yes,
That's really
yes,
hey,
yes. That did happen. Yeah, it continues.
that's huge. Um, okay, I'd like to know a little bit about. I know we talked about Sand and Hope. We know what to expect from Sand and Hope. We know what to expect from the movie, which is exciting. I really do hope that you go through with that and that
Oh,
does.
I'm willing.
That's going to be amazing to watch, and I hope you keep everything in there. Tell us a little bit about your other books, what's coming out and what you've already published.
Well, I already published one on Vietnam, my experience in Vietnam as well. I had saved, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of letters. My mother did, and she has saved them and gave them back to me. And there were hundreds of letters where I told about my experience there, things that were happening, so that brought a lot of memories back. And then in talking to my colleagues in the VFW and the American Legion, they brought stories to me again that resonated with what I did or what they were involved with. So that book is based on that. It is a compilation of stories of things that I was involved with. I was a Marine in the northern part of Vietnam, just by the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, just a few miles off, at Vandergrift Combat Base, just north of Khe Sanh, which had been severely attacked just before I got there. And so there was a lot of action at the time, but there was also a lot of work with the public, with the population. We did the same thing, and I was only 19 years old, and we were working with the farmers, and we were working with the villages to help them out as much as we could. And again, that was a war that was always depicted as killing and killing, but there was a lot more that went on there that people didn't know about.
That's so
And
important to bring out. That really is, because I think you're absolutely right. I think that's the first and almost only thing that we think of, and that's what's mostly reported. We're not reporting, in my opinion, we're not reporting enough of the good that's being done as well,
correct.
being in the world. But it's, I mean, that's amazing work, and I'm so happy that you have decided to bring that out. So, what is the title of that book, the Vietnam?
Yes, that's called the path of heroes is paved in blood, because I lost a lot of my friends, and so I pay tribute to them. Um, a lot of the names are fiction, they're not the real names, although I didn't have their permission to use it. So, but the stories are real. The stories are what happened. Um, and we lost 58,000, more than 58,000 servicemen in Vietnam, um, and many, 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 many millions that came back injured and damaged. My dearest friend Al Lewis was a sergeant with 5 Purple Hearts, served 5 tours in Vietnam. I found him here in Miami Beach when I was a cop. I found him on the streets as homeless, and I picked him up and I put him in a hotel And then I got him a job, and I worked with him for 3 years until he died of lung cancer. Uh, he told me a lot of stories, and he was an incredible human being, incredible. And yet he had come from the war, had lost his family. Actually, his his girlfriend had left him. He had a daughter that never spoke to him uh, until I brought him back, and I paid for him to go to New York and meet his daughter, and that's all in the book. Um, and he was commander of the post where I was. I helped get him to that position because he deserved it. He was a hero. And, he was homeless, but he was a tremendous human being who served his country well for 5 years. And he shouldn't have been forgotten. And he wasn't. He was not forgotten, not by me and not by a lot of people that then got to know him and realize what an individual he was. So I mentioned him in the book. Uh, that will tell you a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really sad to admit what happens after, soldiers go to war and come back, and a lot of them are forgotten. They're remembered by their close ones, but it almost seems like, as an acupuncturist, I have treated a lot of veterans. I extend, free treatments for the vets. So I did treat a few of them, and even as an intern before I had my practice. And it's sad to see, for what a lot of them have done for our country, and then their status and how they're living their lives now. It really saddened me.
Thank you for that work, by the way. That's tremendous.
Yeah, and it's they really do deserve to be more than recognized, more than honored. So I mean, that's just incredible that you did that for that one person. I mean, that's amazing, and thank you for writing about it as well, because those who read it are able to recognize that,
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
which is your purpose, I think, in writing these books, is allow the people to wake up and see more than they allow themselves to see, right? um so that's really amazing. Okay, so we've got down a path paved in blood, correct? We've
Yeah.
got um
The path of heroes is paved in blood.
Paved in blood. Okay, we've got Sheikh Alawi, the Black Scorpion.
Yes.
We've
The
got
black scorpion. Yeah. And
got
you'll see in the book why that's called that.
okay. We have got Sand and Hope, which is
Yes.
the most recent one. Um,
Right.
what else can we expect in the near future?
Well, I have 3 more books coming out this month. They're all crime related, serial killer. My hero is Hunter, Kyle Hunter,
Okay.
and he goes after serial killers in book 1. Then he follows in book 2 because the killer escapes at the end of book 1. So book 2 is about that. And then in book 3, it's the Havana Beijing conundrum, which is a spy story, but also based on a detective by the name of Hector Lanz Wang, who's a Chinese Cuban detective. Well, not Cuban. He was born in the United States. His parents were Chinese, but were raised in Cuba, in Havana. And so there's a whole plot there about spying between Havana and Beijing to destroy the United States. So it's a novel that talks about crime and it talks about spying.
And do you pick
And
up any? Do you integrate any, true events into that?
unfortunately, things are happening that are in the book that I had no idea were happening.
Right.
So,
Consciously you did,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Consciously you must have known. Very interesting. So those all come out this month?
Yes, at the end of this month, my editor says that they'd be ready for publishing in Amazon and my website and Barnes and Noble and whatever other platforms
So it's
will
coming
take
out like
them.
a trilogy, correct? It's coming
What's
out.
that?
It's coming out like a trilogy. One
Yes,
on the other.
it's actually a trilogy. All 3 books follow each other with the same character, but at different locations and with different themes, all involving homicide, all involving crimes. I was a homicide detective, so I use a lot of my experience in putting these things together as well.
Okay, and so can each of them work as a standalone as well? Each of those?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so um, last question before we close the interview. Where can we find all these books? I know you said Amazon. Well, the trilogy is not out yet. When is the trilogy going to be available?
I'm promised that by the end of the month, by the end of December, the trilogy will be out.
Okay, and
Uh,
Sound and Hope is
that was already the Fan and Hope and the Path of Heroes and Alawi. All three already are in Amazon.com, on my website, joepinon.com, and on Barnes and Noble.
okay, and we'll list your website here as well. So you self-published these books, or you used hybrid, or are they traditionally published? Which route did you go?
I wrote the book and I gave it to my editors in Pioneer Publishing, and
Okay,
they format it and make all the little changes, grammatical changes and things that they do, and format it so it can be accepted by the different platforms.
okay, okay. Yeah, I just want to mention them as well. So that's why I was asking. So Pioneer Publishing is the one that's publishing your books.
Correct.
Okay, that's great. Okay, is there any last words you want to share? I mean, this has been so I'm still going to be thinking about your stories after we finish this interview, and of course I'll be reading that book. And I really would love to see this on the big screen. I mean, I think it's definitely worth it. So anything else that you want to add to the interview? Anything else you want the readers, the audience to know?
Well, only that when they read these things, these books, they find appreciation for what we try to do in those countries, in Vietnam and Iraq, and beyond what most people believe that it was just a war, that we tried to destroy those countries. It went beyond that. Uh, so, I think they'll enjoy a lot of the stories. I think they'll learn a lot. I make these so that they could be sold in colleges and high schools. The questions that I gave you are at the end of the book, so that if they are accepted by schools, they can ask themselves, what did we do there? What did we accomplish? What could we have done better? All of these questions can be raised when you read the book and make it more historical and more functional for today. So
Yeah,
it's not just a story,
yeah.
it's something to think about.
They can definitely go much deeper into that and form their own opinions and learn.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
This should be part of history that most likely won't be taught. So
That's,
that's very important for it to get into the universities, colleges, even high schools.
yeah,
Um,
that's my hope. That's my hope that it does go to those educational institutions. They need to learn that. They need to know.
Absolutely, yeah. That should be a required reading, history reading for sure. Okay, well, we're closing up here. We've reached our time limit. So I want to thank you so much. I mean, this has been what an exceptional first interview for me for the South Florida Writers Association Authors Showcase. So thank you so much, Joe, for being on here. I appreciate it. And everybody go out there, go on his website, which we're going to list here, get his books and learn, spread the word. Thank you
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
so much, too. And thank you for your service. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.